Admiral Kethavar of the Zephyrian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign's Wrath, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger on the view screen. His scaled fingers drummed against the command console as he reviewed the intelligence reports one final time. The primitive world below had somehow managed to destroy an entire Zephyrian battle fleet, and worse yet, they had taken something precious from the Empire. Status report on the human settlement? Kethvar's voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered 17 star systems. Commander Vextal approached, his 4 arms carrying multiple data tablets. The colony ship New Horizon was completely destroyed, Admiral. All 50,000 human colonists eliminated. However, our scanning teams confirmed the target was successfully retrieved before the ship's destruction. The Admiral's predatory smile revealed rows of sharp teeth. Excellent. And the child? Secured in detention level 7, as ordered. The human offspring shows remarkable psionic potential, just as our scientists predicted. The Empire's psychic enhancement program will benefit greatly from studying this specimen. What neither of them knew was that the child they had captured wasn't just any human. 7-year-old Maya Chen possessed abilities that even Earth's most advanced scientists barely understood. She was one of only 12 naturally occurring human psychics, children born with mental capabilities that defied conventional understanding. The Zephyrian Empire had destroyed an entire colony ship of 50,000 innocent people just to capture her. Deep in the ship's detention center, Maya sat in a sterile white cell, her small hands pressed against the energy barrier that kept her confined. Tears streamed down her face as she reached out with her mind, searching for any familiar presence. The other children from the colony ship were gone. Her parents were gone. Everyone she had ever known was dead. But Maya's psychic abilities worked differently than the Zephyrians understood. While they expected her powers to be contained by their technology, her grief and terror were amplifying her natural abilities in ways that their instruments couldn't detect. With each passing hour, her mental reach extended further into space, calling out across the vast emptiness between stars. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Martinez was working late in her laboratory at the Psychic Research Institute in Geneva when every piece of monitoring equipment in the building suddenly went haywire. Alarms blared as psionic readings spiked beyond anything the instruments were designed to measure. "What the hell is happening?" she shouted to her assistant, Dr. James Wong, who was frantically trying to recalibrate the sensors. "It's impossible, Sarah. These readings suggest a psychic distress call of unprecedented strength. The signal is coming from outside our solar system, but the power levels are off the charts." Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized what they were detecting. "Get me a connection to President Harrison immediately, and contact the other children. If someone is broadcasting a psychic distress signal this powerful from space, it can only mean one thing." Within hours, the 11 remaining human psychic children from around the world were gathered in the secure facility beneath the Swiss Alps. These children, ranging in age from 6 to 12, had been kept secret from the general public. Their abilities were too dangerous and too valuable to risk exposure. 12-year-old David Kim from Seoul was the strongest among them. He placed his hand on the psionic amplifier that the researchers had built. "I can feel her," he whispered, his voice strained with concentration. "She's scared, she's alone, and she's very far away." 9-year-old Emma Rodriguez from Mexico City joined the link, her empathic abilities adding emotional context to David's mental reach. "They hurt her. They killed everyone she loved. There are so many of them. And they're coming here." The third child, 10-year-old Alex Petrov from Moscow, specialized in precognitive flashes. As he touched the amplifier, his eyes rolled back and his voice became distant. "Ships. Hundreds of ships. They're not just coming for Earth. They want all of us. They think we're weapons they can use." President Harrison stood in the background with Dr. Martinez and the world's top military leaders, listening to the children describe horrors that were approaching their world. Through the psychic link, they learned that the Zephyrian Empire had been systematically hunting and capturing psychic individuals across the galaxy for decades, using them as living weapons in their conquest campaigns. "How long do we have?" General Morrison asked. Alex's young face was pale with strain. 3 days, maybe 4. They're moving fast because they think we're primitive. They don't expect resistance. What the Zephyrians didn't understand about humanity was that while other species might surrender when faced with overwhelming odds, humans had a tendency to do the opposite. When pushed to the breaking point, when their children were threatened, humans didn't just fight back. They fought with a fury that could reshape the very foundations of the universe. Dr. Martinez turned to President Harrison. "Sir, we need to contact every major world leader immediately. This isn't just about Maya anymore. If these aliens are willing to commit genocide to capture one psychic child, what do you think they'll do when they discover we have 11 more?" The president's face hardened with resolve. "Then we make sure they regret ever hearing of Earth. General Morrison, I want every military asset we have mobilized within the next 6 hours. Contact the International Space Alliance, the Mars colonies, and every off-world human settlement. If these bastards want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." As the world's leaders scrambled to prepare Earth's defenses, the psychic children maintained their link with Maya across the impossible distance of space. Through their connection, they learned the true scope of the Zephyrian Empire's power and cruelty. Entire civilizations had been enslaved. Billions of sentient beings had been killed or subjugated. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years, and no one had ever successfully resisted them. But the Empire had never encountered humans before. In the depths of space, aboard the Sovereign's Wrath, Admiral Kethvar received a report that made his blood run cold. His science officer, trembling with fear, approached the command chair. "Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the human homeworld. They appear to be mobilizing." Kethvar's laugh was harsh and dismissive. "Mobilizing. These primitives barely have interplanetary travel. What could they possibly do against the might of the Empire? Sir, the energy readings suggest they're powering up weapon systems we've never seen before. And there's something else. The psychic child we captured has been broadcasting continuously since we took her. Our psychic dampening fields aren't working." The Admiral's amusement faded. "What do you mean they're not working?" "The child's psychic output has been increasing exponentially. Our containment systems are failing, and worse, she appears to be in contact with other psychic individuals on her homeworld. The power levels we're detecting suggest they're using some kind of artificial amplification network." For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt a chill of uncertainty. The Empire's standard procedure was to capture psychic individuals while they were young and untrained, before they could develop their full potential. But if the humans had already identified and trained their psychic population, if they had built technology to amplify their abilities, then this mission had just become infinitely more complicated. In her cell, Maya had stopped crying. The connection with her fellow psychics had given her something the Zephyrians hadn't expected: hope. Through the link, she could feel the entire human civilization preparing for war. She could sense her people's rage at what had been done to her and the colonists. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Coalition's most advanced warship, the Terra's Vengeance. Around her, holographic displays showed the approaching Zephyrian fleet, their massive ships cutting through space like predators closing in on what they believed was helpless prey. The aliens had no idea they were flying directly into humanity's carefully laid trap. Status report on the psychic amplification network? Captain Vasquez asked her communications officer. All 11 children are connected and maintaining the link with Maya. Dr. Martinez reports their combined output is stable, and we're receiving real-time intelligence on enemy ship positions, weapons capabilities, and tactical formations. Through the psychic network, Maya had become humanity's greatest intelligence asset. Every thought the Zephyrian crew members had, every tactical decision their commanders made, every weakness in their ship designs, all of it flowed through the frightened little girl directly to Earth's military planners. The aliens had unwittingly placed their greatest vulnerability right in the heart of their own fleet. Admiral Chen, Maya's grandfather and the supreme commander of Earth's combined fleet, studied the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. The old man had spent 40 years in the Chinese Space Navy, rising through the ranks during the Mars colonial wars and the asteroid belt conflicts. But nothing in his military career had prepared him for this moment. His granddaughter was being held prisoner by an alien empire that had just committed genocide against human colonists. Their battle formation is exactly as Maya predicted, Admiral Chen said to his staff. They're arranging their ships in the traditional Zephyrian conquest pattern, with their heaviest battleships in the center and lighter vessels forming a perimeter. They expect us to either surrender immediately or mount a desperate, uncoordinated defense. General Sarah Kim, the coalition's chief strategic officer, highlighted several points on the tactical display. Our hidden weapon platforms in the asteroid belt are in position. The Mars defense grid has been reconfigured for long-range engagement. And our sleeper ships have been deployed along their most likely approach vectors. What the Zephyrian Empire didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for exactly this kind of threat for over 50 years. After first contact with the peaceful Andorian Republic, human leaders had realized that if friendly aliens existed, hostile ones probably did too. Every major space power on Earth had contributed to a secret defense network that spanned the entire solar system. Hidden weapon platforms disguised as asteroids, massive railguns built into the lunar surface, sleeper ships that looked like harmless cargo haulers but were actually packed with experimental weapons, and most importantly, a network of quantum communication devices that allowed instantaneous coordination across impossible distances. But humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their technology, it was their psychology. In the Zephyrian detention center, Maya had stopped behaving like a frightened child. The connection with her fellow psychics had transformed her into something the Empire's scientists couldn't understand. Through the network, she was accessing the combined knowledge and experiences of Earth's greatest military minds, strategic planners, and tactical experts. The child's behavior has changed significantly, reported Dr. Zarkhan, the Empire's chief xenopsychologist, to Admiral Kethavar. She's no longer displaying signs of fear or distress. Instead, she appears to be studying our crew. The Admiral's massive frame shifted uneasily in his command chair. What do you mean, studying? She's been observing our guard rotations, listening to our communications, and somehow understanding our language despite having no prior exposure to it. More concerning, several crew members report feeling watched, even when she's not physically present. What Dr. Zarkhan couldn't know was that Maya was doing much more than observing. Through her psychic abilities, amplified by Earth's technology, she was mapping every detail of the Zephyrian ships. Weapons placements, shield generators, engine configurations, even the personal quarters of key officers. Every piece of information was being transmitted in real time to Earth's fleet commanders. Captain Rodriguez of the stealth destroyer Silent Hunter received Maya's intelligence update and smiled grimly. Target confirmed. The Zephyrian flagship's shield generators are located exactly where the child indicated. Quantum torpedoes are armed and ready. The Silent Hunter was one of humanity's most advanced weapons, a ship designed specifically for missions that officially didn't exist. Equipped with experimental cloaking technology and weapons that violated several interstellar treaties, it had been drifting silently behind the Zephyrian fleet for the past 18 hours. Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive view screen on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger as his fleet approached. The primitive blue world looked peaceful and defenseless, just as his intelligence reports had predicted. Soon, the Empire would claim this system and its psychic population, adding another conquered species to their vast domain. "Admiral, we're detecting some unusual energy signatures from the third planet," his sensor officer reported hesitantly. "Define unusual." "The power output suggests they're charging some kind of defensive systems, but the energy patterns don't match any known technology. It's almost like they're using their planet's electromagnetic field as a weapon." Kethvar's expression darkened. "Impossible. These humans barely have faster-than-light travel. They couldn't possibly have developed planetary-scale weapons." But as the Zephyrian fleet drew closer to Earth, more anomalous readings began appearing on their sensors. Energy signatures that suggested massive construction projects hidden on the far side of Earth's moon. Artificial gravity wells that indicated the presence of heavy industrial installations throughout the asteroid belt. And most disturbing of all, quantum signatures that suggested the humans possessed technology the Empire didn't understand. "Sir, I'm detecting over 300 distinct energy sources throughout this system." The sensor officer's voice was tight with confusion. "Many of them are mobile and appear to be converging on our position." For the first time since beginning this mission, Admiral Kethvar felt genuine concern. The Empire's intelligence reports had described Earth as a barely spacefaring civilization with primitive technology and no unified planetary government. But the sensor readings suggested something entirely different. A technologically advanced, militarily prepared civilization that had been deliberately concealing its true capabilities. In her cell, Maya suddenly stood up and walked to the energy barrier. For the first time since her capture, she spoke directly to her guards. "You made a mistake," the 7-year-old said in perfect Zephyrian, her young voice carrying an authority that made the alien guards step back involuntarily. "The child speaks our language," one guard whispered to the other in shock. "You killed my friends," Maya continued, her small hands pressed against the barrier. "You destroyed their ship and took me from my family. But you don't understand what humans are like when someone hurts our children." Through the psychic network, Maya was no longer just a frightened little girl. She was the focal point of humanity's collective rage, the voice through which an entire species was about to deliver judgment on their enemies. "We tried to live in peace," Maya said, and now her voice was being broadcast through the ship's communication system, reaching every crew member aboard the massive vessel. "We sent colony ships to empty worlds far from anyone else, because we didn't want to fight, but you came to us. You murdered innocents. You took a child from her home." Alarms began blaring throughout the Zephyrian fleet as their sensors detected the sudden appearance of hundreds of human ships that had been hiding in the system's outer reaches. What had seemed like empty space was suddenly filled with vessels of war, all converging on the alien fleet with deadly precision. "Now you're going to learn what happens when humans get angry." Maya's voice echoed through every ship in the Zephyrian fleet, her words carrying the promise of devastation. Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical displays in growing horror as the true scope of the human fleet revealed itself. He wasn't looking at a primitive civilization's desperate last stand. He was looking at a carefully orchestrated military operation that had been planned and prepared for decades. "Sir, enemy vessels are powering up weapon systems," his tactical officer reported, his voice barely controlled panic. "Energy readings indicate weapon technologies we've never encountered before." "How many ships?" Kethvar demanded. "Over 800 confirmed contacts, sir, and more are still decloaking." The Admiral's scaled hands gripped his command chair as he realized the magnitude of his error. the Zephyrian Empire had sent a conquest fleet to subjugate Aprimi. The battle for Earth lasted exactly 37 minutes. When the human fleet opened fire, the Zephyrian Empire discovered that their intelligence reports hadn't just been wrong, they had been catastrophically, impossibly wrong. The weapons that tore through their ships weren't primitive projectile systems or basic energy beams. They were technologies that violated the Empire's understanding of physics, quantum disruptors that collapsed matter at the subatomic level, gravity bombs that created miniature black holes before collapsing harmlessly, dimensional torpedoes that bypassed shields entirely by attacking from folded space, and most terrifying of all, psychic amplifiers that turned Maya's pain and anger into weapons that could tear apart enemy minds across impossible distances. Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet die around him as human ships emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system. What he had mistaken for asteroids revealed themselves as massive weapons platforms. What looked like empty space suddenly filled with ships that had been cloaked by technology the Empire didn't even theorize existed. "Shields down to 40%, his tactical officer screamed over the sound of explosions echoing through the ship's hull. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15. We're losing life support." But the Admiral wasn't listening to damage reports. He was staring at the tactical display, trying to understand how his invincible fleet was being destroyed by what should have been a primitive civilization. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their attacks precisely timed and devastatingly effective. This wasn't a desperate last stand. This was a masterpiece of military planning that had been decades in the making. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting a message on all frequencies," his communications officer reported. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge belonged to Admiral Chen, Maya's grandfather. His words were calm, measured, and absolutely terrifying in their certainty. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Coalition. You have committed acts of genocide against human civilians and kidnapped a human child. Your fleet is destroyed. Your mission has failed. You have exactly 10 minutes to return our citizen and surrender your ships, or we will demonstrate why humanity has never been conquered." Kethvar's laugh was bitter and filled with desperate bravado. "Surrender? You may have surprised us humans, but the Zephyrian Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. We do not surrender to primitives." The response came not from Admiral Chen, but from Maya herself. Her young voice filled the bridge, but now it carried the combined authority of humanity's greatest leaders and military minds. "You call us primitives," Maya said, "but you're the ones who think strength means killing innocent people. You're the ones who steal children and destroy families. We're going to show you what real strength looks like." Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, something impossible began to happen. Human ships that had been damaged in the fighting suddenly began repairing themselves, their hull breaches sealing and weapons coming back online. Ships that had been destroyed completely reformed from scattered debris as if time itself was reversing around them. "What is happening?" Kethvar demanded, but his science officers had no answers. What they were witnessing was the true scope of human technological achievement. The psychic network that connected Maya to Earth wasn't just used for communication. It was a quantum consciousness field that allowed human technology to operate beyond the normal laws of physics. Through sheer force of will, amplified by machines that merged science with the power of the human mind, humanity could impose their reality on the universe around them. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Terra's Vengeance, watching as her ship's battle damage simply ceased to exist. Through the psychic network, she could feel Maya's determination, the child's absolute certainty that the aliens would pay for what they had done. "Target the Zephyrian flagship," Captain Vasquez ordered. "Prepare the quantum lance." The quantum lance was humanity's most devastating weapon, a device that could tear holes in reality itself. It had never been tested in combat, but the psychic network was guiding its targeting systems with impossible precision. Aboard the Sovereign's Wrath, Admiral Kethvar felt his ship shudder as something beyond his understanding locked onto his vessel. Alarms screamed warnings about energy signatures that shouldn't exist, about weapons that operated outside the known laws of physics. "Sir, they're charging some kind of directed energy weapon," his tactical officer reported, his voice breaking with terror. "The power readings are off the scale. It's like they're channeling the energy of a star." But before the humans could fire, Maya's voice once again filled the alien ship. "Wait!" Throughout the human fleet, weapons that had been charging for the killing blow suddenly powered down. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication channel, tight with controlled fury. "Maya, what are you doing? We have them!" "Grandfather," the little girl's voice was sad but determined, "if we destroy them all, how will the galaxy know what happens to people who hurt human children?" In her cell aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Maya placed her hand against the energy barrier. The barrier that had held her for days suddenly flickered and died, its alien technology unable to function in the presence of her amplified psychic abilities. "I want to go home," Maya said simply, and the words carried across space to every human ship in the fleet. Admiral Kethvar watched in stunned silence as a 7-year-old human child walked out of his supposedly escape-proof detention center and made her way toward the bridge of his ship. Every security door opened for her. Every guard stepped aside without understanding why. The ship's own systems seemed to be helping her navigate toward the command deck. When Maya entered the bridge, she looked very small, standing among the towering alien warriors. But her presence filled the entire room with an authority that made grown soldiers step back in fear. "I'm going home now," Maya announced to Admiral Kethvar. "But first, you're going to do something for me." The Admiral found himself unable to speak, unable to move, as the child's psychic abilities held him in place. "You're going to go back to your empire," Maya continued, "and you're going to tell them what happened here. You're going to tell them that humans don't start fights, but we finish them. You're going to tell them that if anyone ever hurts human children again, we won't just destroy one fleet." Through the psychic network, Maya's consciousness expanded beyond the immediate battle. She reached out across space, her awareness touching the edges of the Zephyrian Empire itself. Through the quantum field that connected all human psychics, she let her mind explore the vast alien civilization that had threatened her people. "I can see your worlds," Maya said, and now her voice carried the weight of absolute knowledge. "All of them. Every planet you've conquered, every species you've enslaved, every child you've taken from their families. I can see all of it. And so can Earth." Admiral Kethvar felt his mind touched by something vast and inexorable, a consciousness that encompassed not just one little girl, but the entire human species. Through that contact, he saw what Maya saw, the true scope of human civilization, colonies on 1,000 worlds, space habitats that housed billions of people, fleets hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for the signal to emerge and protect human interests. And underlying it all, a network of psychic consciousness that connected every human mind across impossible distances. The Zephyrian Empire hadn't discovered a primitive world. They had stumbled upon the greatest power in the galaxy, a civilization that had been quietly spreading through space for centuries while carefully hiding their true capabilities. "We let you think we were weak," Maya said, "because we hoped you would leave us alone. We didn't want to fight, but you came to our home. You killed our people. You took me from my family." Around the Zephyrian flagship, the human fleet maintained their positions, weapons powered down but still clearly ready for action. Through the psychic network, Maya could feel their patience, their willingness to wait for her decision about what should happen to their enemies. "You're going to release every psychic individual your empire has ever captured," Maya continued, her young voice carrying the weight of absolute command. You're going to free every enslaved world, and you're going to make sure that everyone in the galaxy knows what happens when someone threatens humanity." Admiral Kethvar found his voice at last, though it came out as barely a whisper. "The Empire will never accept such terms. We rule 1,000 worlds." Maya's smile was sad but understanding. "You don't rule anything anymore. Look at your screens." The tactical displays throughout the bridge suddenly came alive with new information. Across the Zephyrian Empire, human ships were decloaking around every major world and military installation. The fleet that had attacked Earth hadn't been fighting humanity's entire military. They had been fighting a tiny fraction of it. "We've been in your space for 50 years, Maya explained patiently. "We've been watching you, learning about you, preparing for the day when you would threaten someone we cared about. That day is today." Through the psychic network, Maya transmitted the complete tactical situation to Admiral Kethvar's mind. Human fleets surrounding the Zephyrian capital world. Human agents in position throughout the Empire's government and military. Human technology that could shut down Zephyrian ships with a thought. "Your empire ends today," Maya said with the casual certainty of a child discussing the weather. "The only question is whether it ends with the freedom of everyone you've enslaved or with the complete destruction of everything you've built." Admiral Kethvar looked at the tactical displays, at the impossible scope of human preparation and planning, at the gentle but implacable force of will radiating from the small child who had just dismantled his entire understanding of the galaxy. I surrender," he whispered. Maya nodded and turned toward the bridge's viewing screen, where Earth hung in space like a blue and white jewel. "Take me home, grandfather." And across the galaxy, the greatest empire in known history began the process of freeing every world it had ever conquered, all because they had made the mistake of taking one little girl away from her family. The universe learned that day that humans were not to be underestimated, but more importantly, it learned that there were some lines that should never be crossed, and threatening human children was the most dangerous line of all. Tiv world. Instead, they had walked into a trap set by a species that had been preparing for this exact scenario for half a century. "Signal the retreat," he ordered, but his communications officer shook his head. "Sir, they're jamming our quantum communicators. We can't contact the Empire." On Earth, President Harrison stood in the Coalition's war room, watching as humanity's hidden fleet moved into attack positions. Around him, military leaders from every nation and colony worked in perfect coordination, their decades of secret planning finally coming to fruition. "All ships report ready, Mr. President," Admiral Chen announced, his voice steady despite the fact that his granddaughter was aboard the enemy flagship. "Then let's bring Maya home," Harrison said quietly. "And make sure the galaxy knows what happens to anyone who threatens human children." The order went out across the human fleet, and 800 ships of war opened fire simultaneously. The space around Earth lit up with energy beams, missile trails, and weapons that the Zephyrian Empire had never seen before. Humanity's response to the kidnapping of one little girl was nothing less than the complete annihilation of their enemies. Most importantly, she could feel their determination to make the Empire pay. The little girl stood up, placed her hands against the energy barrier of her cell, and for the first time since her capture, she smiled. The Zephyrian Empire had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that humans were like every other species they had conquered, weak, divided, and willing to surrender when faced with superior force. They were about to learn that humans were different. When someone hurt a human child, when innocent people were murdered, humanity didn't just seek justice, they delivered annihilation. And Maya Chen, the 7-year-old girl they had captured, was about to become the beacon that guided Earth's fury directly to their doorstep.